Hello there, thank you for clicking on this video. So today we're going to talk about a George Lucas interview that you probably have already seen thanks to Star Wars theory. But I think it's important to talk about it because he says so many things that are very important, not just about Star Wars, but about life in general. So I have my Empire Strikes Back shirt on and let's start with the video. So let's start with probably the most newsworthy thing George Lucas said in this interview from October 2020.
I've kind of lost control of Star Wars, so it's going off in a different path than what I intended. But the first six are very much mine and my philosophy.
Here you go, guys. 1 to 6. That's it. That is his vision. He has nothing to do with the sequels, and he's probably mad that they're treating his baby like that. Maybe I'm just projecting on him, but I do think that George Lucas would never shrink John Boyega on the Chinese poster and wouldn't reduce characters to just screaming. Right! His vision was totally different, and if the rumors are true, he had the sequels already planned out and they would have been about the whales. The whales are almighty creatures that are literally in the essence of the universe. I don't even know how to explain it, but they're super mighty and they know everything that is going on. The episode of Clone Wars where Yoda goes to the whales is one of the best episodes in the series. And I personally think that the sequels being about the whales would have been amazing and groundbreaking and just mind-blowing, but instead we got
somehow Palpatine returned.
So the next thing I want to talk about is actually when George Lucas is talking about fear and loss and anger, and the fact that he gives Anakin's story as an example. It makes me so happy because he still wants to talk about it and he still believes in the story.
You can't hold on to people because the pain of losing somebody or losing something is your pain. It's not the pain of, that person. It's your pain of losing that person being with you. And you have to be able to overcome that. Otherwise, you just suffer your whole life.
And I also think it's very important what he says because we as humans can again apply this. It's not just about Star Wars. It's about the fact that when people cannot let go, they suffer and hurt themselves. They're the only ones that are hurting. They're not doing it to anyone else. It's just them. And it is very important for humans, for any person, to learn to let go and move on, and that's what George Lucas is saying. And on the other hand, obviously you have the Star Wars story of Anakin.
The thing with Anakin is that he started out a great kid. He was very compassionate, so the issue is how did he turn bad? How did he go to the dark side? And he went to the dark side by the Jedis are not supposed to have attachments. They can love people, they can do it, but they can't attach. That's the problem when you get in the world of fear. Once you're attached to something, then you become afraid of losing it. And when you became afraid of losing it, then you turn to the dark side and you want to hold on to it. And that's what Anakin's issue was ultimately, is he wanted to hold on to his wife, who he knew he had a premonition that she was going to die. He didn't know how to stop it, so he went to the dark side. When you do that, then you're afraid and you're on the dark side and you fall off the golden path of compassion because you are greedy. You want to hold on to something that you love, and he didn't do it. And as a result, he turned bad.
I love that he gave Anakin as an example because many people often say, well, Anakin turned to the dark side very quickly and without much explanation. But here again, you have the Master Jedi himself explains how through his attachments and fear, he slowly was turning to the dark side. And I think that many people forget that Anakin grew up very poor and he was a slave. He had no father. He was surrounded by the worst of the worst on Tatooine, and then gets taken away by this random man and told he's special, but then over and over again he's being denied any praise and acknowledgement. And oh wow, he's tormented by visions that are put in his head by Palpatine. And the fact that the Jedi never acknowledged him and always downplayed his abilities, and he was asking for help. He was reaching out to Yoda, to everybody, but they were really ignoring him. And I do see Anakin as a very emotional, passionate person, but the Jedi constantly tell him to, as I said, ignore this part of himself and basically be emotionless, literally destroying and denying what he really is. So this does a lot to you mentally, even in the real life, when people constantly ignore you and tell you that your feelings don't matter. Bad things happen. But I do love the fact that George Lucas still believes in his story and gives Anakin as an example, because Anakin's story is one of the greatest tragedies in cinema, in my opinion. And he very poetically talks about his suffering, fear, and ultimately his downfall. And he does say that fear is the path to the dark side and that compassion is the path to the light side.
Fear is the path to the dark side. Fear leads to anger. Anger leads to hate. Hate leads to suffering.
The next thing I want to talk about is what he says about the timeless story that Star Wars is and the universal truth of Star Wars. So Star Wars tells a story of democracy that turns into dictatorship, which is, we all know the story, and it is not exclusive just to the East or West. It can happen anywhere. And the story about the little man against the big tyranny is something that anyone can relate to. And this is what Star Wars is about the endless struggle of the little man, the ultimate struggle of humanity.
And I think that philosophy sort of goes beyond any particular time, because it's based on history, it's based on philosophy, it's based on a lot of things. And you know, the first three basically tell you how a democracy turns into a dictatorship, and you end up with a tyrant, the emperor.
Any person in any country, in any language, anyone, anywhere is going to understand what Star Wars is about and what the lessons are.
So the thing about that is, George, you're saying with the movies, there's the time, it's not of the time, but the lessons are timeless, right?
Yeah, they're timeless. They've been around for thousands of years. They're based on ancient mythology.
And the fact that he says that we should learn from each other and that we should respect each other, our different cultures, it is again something that people really forget about. We cannot all be the same, and that's the good thing. We all have our countries, our cultural backgrounds, and these are things to be respected. And I love that he says, you know, in Star Wars, the only thing that was discriminated against were the robots. Otherwise, everybody were equal. And in my opinion, he did kind of state that the aliens, that the creatures in Star Wars were based on ancient cultures, which inherently makes Star Wars diverse, which brings me to my last point. And my last point is that people nowadays often state how diverse and brave the sequels are for having actors such as John Boyega or Kelly Marie Tran or Oscar Isaac, and for having strong female characters. But in my opinion, that is a BS, because you did put many different people in the movies, but you didn't do anything meaningful with them, which is ridiculous. You are praising Finn John Boyega for being in the movie just because of his race, but you fail to do anything meaningful with him. Same with Kelly Marie Tran or Oscar Isaac or any of the other female characters. Even Kylo Ren wasn't good in my opinion. Nobody had any meaningful part in the movies.
Right!
And I do think that people tend to forget that George Lucas was as inclusive as it gets. He was a pioneer back in the 70s, or actually 80s. He had Lando Calrissian. I mean, he was a fan favorite, and he had a huge part in Return of the Jedi and The Empire Strikes Back. Lando was very important to the story, and he had a meaningful arc. So don't tell me that Star Wars never gave platform to any of the people of color. I mean, you have Mace Windu, who was again a fan favorite. Almost 20 years later, people are still wanting him back. I did like him, and he was a great, great, important character. Star Wars wouldn't be the same without him. And obviously, people forget that the voice of Darth Vader is James Earl Jones, who we love so much and respect so much. And when it comes to female characters, you have Leia and Padme. And yes, Padme was obviously Anakin's love interest, but she did have her own important story. She was a senator, and she was shooting people and fighting people and doing politics, and she had a very big and meaningful part in Star Wars in general. And obviously you have Leia, who again had a love interest, but her romance with Han Solo was, in my opinion, always second to the bigger story of Luke and Leia being siblings. And I must talk about Ahsoka Tano and Asajj Ventress. Asajj Ventress for me had one of the best character developments in Star Wars. She was so feminine, yet so badass and classy and cool. And from a very evil mercenary, she became a very respectable character. And I wish we see more of her, more of the Night Sisters and Mother Talzin, the whole gang. I love it. I love her. And I think Asajj is just an amazing, amazing female character. This is how you do a female character. And obviously Ahsoka Tano, what should I say about her? She was an annoying teenager and became into this beautiful, strong, brave woman that, I mean, everybody loves Ahsoka. Even if they don't love Ahsoka, they always mention how cool she became. So this is all I wanted to say about the George Lucas interview, that it's not as recent, but I did wanted to talk about it. I saw it when Star Wars Theory first talked about it, and I really want to talk about it. I'm a bit late as always, but I love what George Lucas has said, and you can totally see how passionate he is, and he's so smart the way he talks about Asian cultures. And I hope that he comes back one day, because fans are crying for him and he just needs to come back. And I recommend you go and watch the whole interview. Him and his wife talk so well, and I loved it. I love the whole thing. Very important things were said in there, and probably one of my favorite things is this:
go through life and follow your bliss, which means follow what you enjoy. And that's what I did.
I do agree with George that it's very important to find what you love and to do that, and you will eventually be able to make a living with it. It's really a big truth that if you're passionate for something and love doing something, that you should do it. So thank you guys for watching this video. I really hope you like it. Let me know down below, do you miss George Lucas, and what was your favorite part of his interview? See you in the next episode, and may the force be with Star Wars.